about it because I'd only seen it in a photograph, but now I can see it. It looks really nice because after all, those calipers, they do get quite a bit of wind going through them, especially when these riders are pedaling away. So this is the ICS Aero system, standing for Integrated Cockpit System. Now what's really interesting these days about integrated handlebars and stems is that they're not as integrated as they once were, when it was simply a one-piece affair. So in fact, the handlebars and stem are two separate components, meaning that mixing and matching stem lengths and bar widths is way, way easier for mechanics. So when it comes to having to change them around, it's not quite as troublesome. So the aerodynamics, of course, that comes from the flat profile here on the top of the actual handlebar. And the integrated, well, that can also be because the cables, they run internally here just past the bend of the actual top of the handlebar, and then they run internally all the way. Now, something else worth mentioning on this bike is the actual top cap cover of the headset, because that's aerodynamic, and they do in fact come in a couple of different heights too. So if a rider is going to be running with their bars slightly high, I guess, then aerodynamics are going to be kept to well, a reasonable level. And also this bottom section here, which is connected to the stem, that too can actually be changed. At first I wondered if it was integrated, but well, it's not strictly integrated, it's kind of incorporated into the actual stem design. Fitted onto the bike of Davide Ballerini of the Astana Pro team is the FSA Powerbox power meter. So FSA, they've partnered up with Power to Max to provide a great bit of kit because it's an upgradable or updatable power meter. So your standard power meter, it comes with your power output as well as your left-right efficiency. But if you update or upgrade the firmware for that small bit of extra cost, well, then you get your torque output as well as your pedal smoothness too. Handy. Wolfpack. No, it's not the name of the Quick-Step team. Well, it is, but these tyres aren't on the bike of Quick-Step. In fact, they're on the bike of Astana. Now, Wolfpack is a relatively small company, and the guy who owns it has actually worked at a number of other tyre companies along the way before, well, branching out on his own. Now, I have spoken to a couple of other mechanics here, and they reckon that these tyres are amongst the grippiest out there, and that the team could use them in all different weather conditions. They've got silk sidewalls as well, which is absolutely brilliant. You don't see that very often anymore. But the downside, apparently, is that the tread is a little bit soft for the really, really poor weather conditions. But, well, it's good to see another tyre company out there. And, yeah, gum sidewalls. Thumbs up. GPS mounts. Something in the past I've been known to obsess over. In fact, I still do. It's not a thing of the past. But this one here from Crade, well, it's really good because you can simply press a button on the underside and then extend it or reduce it depending on the length of your head unit. That's good. One solution fits all. So I got the Speedcraft Air glasses on from 100%, and well, they attach via some little magnet pads here, which self-adhesively attach onto your nose, but still obviously use your normal temples. But with this handy dial on the front, I was a little bit dubious, to be honest, if they would actually work or not, but I can feel my nostrils opening. I hope the cameraman's not picking that up too much because it's not going to be pleasant inside, but yeah, you can definitely feel the difference. And well, when you put them on, they do actually, look at that, they're not going to come off. They're stuck on. My nose is going to come off before the glasses do. Now, something that's just caught my eye are 3 aluminium bikes here of the team of Bora Hansgrohe. So, Jay McCarthy, Oscar Gatto and Peter Sagan have all got themselves a specialised LA sprint frame. And apparently they're only going to be using it in the Criterium here, which does start just one day before the actual main event. But it is interesting to see that. And, well, the colourway, that's really what actually what popped out in my eyesight, because it is slightly different, and I do like the green offering of that. And then, what's that I spy? Yep, that's right, tubeless tyres again. So, well, the plot thickens. Maybe we'll see them using tubeless tyres this season. Who knows? Now, something I've noticed on the bikes of Peter Sagan in the past is that he tends to use slightly wider axles on his pedals than normal. One reason behind this is that he desires a wider Q factor, or possibly it's just something to do with comfort. Either way, these days riders are actually limited with their Q factor because, well, integrated axles onto chain sets don't allow you to get your cranks further apart. Whereas years ago, we used to be able to use square taper bottom brackets and therefore adjust your Q factor accordingly. So that's one of the reasons possibly why he's got these extenders in. But probably the most interesting thing about this is they don't look like the standard Shimano part. Instead, they're quite, well, rough around the edges, and it looks almost a bit like my Dremel bits at home that have sort of diamonds integrated into them. I don't know exactly what they are, but they look great, and I love the fact that Sagan is really particular about his position. Now, tucked away on this bike of Adam Blythe of Lotto Soudal is in fact a K-Edge chain catcher. It's not just any old chain catcher though. Oh no, no, no. It is in fact a double whammy, if you like, because it's going to keep your chain in position as well as also it's got a magnet there on the bottom of it, so that's going to register up with the power meter, which means you're going to get deadly accurate cadence readings. Now, Blythe on this bike, he doesn't actually have his power meter fitted as of yet. The mechanic, well, he's calling over my name right now to try and get the bike back, but he's going to have to wait. But yeah, that's actually what it's there for. And if that's not enough K-Edge for you just yet, well, check out that. There's a number mount on there too. I do like a nice number mount. Something which I'm pretty sure is new is in fact this rear derailleur hanger that, well, another new product is fitted into. So in this case, it's the 12-speed Campagnolo Super Record EPS rear derailleur, but it looks to me like that is a custom-made derailleur hanger. So CNC machined bit of kit rather than cast aluminium. Now, some of you will remember back at the Vuelta a España in 2018, I spotted a prototype group set, an EPS Super Record 12-speed. Well, here it is in the flesh again, but this time, importantly, complete with logos. Keep your eyes peeled, it's coming. Well, at least I think it is. Now, a problem that many cyclists out there find is that if they're wearing sunglasses, which is pretty common here in Australia, for instance, they actually touch or rub or connect with the retention system on the back of the helmet. Now, in the case of Koo here, who are the manufacturer of these sunglasses, they're actually part of the Kask brand, and of course, Kask are a helmet company. They have come up with an ingenious solution, in my opinion, adjustable temples, which are done neatly because from first glance on the outside, you wouldn't even know they're adjustable. So you simply slide it into a slot of your choice, depending on the size of your head and also the retention system you're using. Great idea. So I'm lucky enough to be here with the bike of Elia Viviani, and well, he appears to be using clincher tyres, or in fact, tubeless tyres, judging by the nut here on the valve. So unless they're actually trying to pull the wool over my eyes and trick me, it wouldn't be the first time. Maybe, just maybe, we will see the team of De Koning Quick-Step Floors take to using tubeless tyres this season. That'll be a first, especially for that team. Now, after all that hot tech, I need to cool myself down. But before you go away, make sure you leave a comment down below with your favourite bit of tech. And also like and share this video with your friends. Give it a big thumbs up down there. There's been a bit of a shake-up in the World Tour because the bike sponsorship merry-go-round has well and truly happened between 2018 and 2019. Let's have a look at who's using what.
The squad of AG Desert Le Mondial have changed after 2 seasons with factor frames and forks to the Belgian brand Eddy Merckx, who make a return to the top level after Quick-Step previously used the brand back in 2011. That's not the only new thing about AG Desert though, because now they're using Campagnolo group sets. Bars and stems now come from Deda Elementi, and tyres by Vredestein, who make a return to the World Tour for the first time in quite a while. Rotor power meters replace SRM, and KMC chains replace Shimano. Astana have been using Argon 18 frame sets for the last 2 seasons and continue the trend in 2019. Wheels, just like in 2018, are Corima, and Astana remain the only team in the World Tour using that brand. Group sets are Shimano. For 2019, they look to be set on Wolfpack tyres, but previously we have seen them use multiple brands in 1 season. Bahrain Merida enter their 3rd season of existence and naturally continue to use Merida frames and forks, and the group sets, they're from Shimano. with the exception of the chain set, because the squad actually decided to use the Ultra Bling THM Clavicula models with the integrated SRM power meter. Wheels, they're provided by Fulcrum and they're wrapped up in rubber from Continental. For the third year running too is Bora Hansgrohe, and the frame sets of Specialized and group sets of Shimano. Wheels, they come from Roval, who are the wheel brand of Specialized. And tyres, they too come from Specialized, as do the handlebars when using the aerobike, such as the Venge. Otherwise, the squad can be seen using bars and stems from Pro, who are actually part of Shimano. A new squad for 2019, CCC. Now this team came to life from the BMC racing team, but BMC didn't decide to carry the sponsorship over. Instead, Giant stepped up to provide the frames and forks. Group sets provided by Shimano, and the bars and stems are just like the frame, Giant. And wheels, they're labelled as #overachieve, which is something I spotted a few times last year at races. And the tyres, well, they come from Vittoria. Dimension Data is a fitting team to come after CCC, as Dimension Data are using the brand BMC for their frame sets in 2019. Group sets are Shimano, with the exception of the chain set, which is Rotor, and the chain, which is KMC. Wheels are Envy, who have been with the team for a number of seasons now, and Vittoria tyres finish off those wheels nicely. And finally, Astute saddles, they've been replaced with Celia Italia for this year. And we were very privileged to be able to film the 2019 bikes of EF Education First Pro Cycling, as they were under a strict embargo, and with plenty of prying eyes while we had to go undercover. The team, they have largely stuck with the same setup from 2018, so that means Cannondale frames and forks and Shimano group sets and Vision wheels. The change though is that this season the power meter is no longer SRM, they've made the switch to Power to Max. Not making any changes for 2019 is the team of Groupama FDJ, Lapierre frame sets, Shimano group sets and wheels, and the wheels, well, they've got Continental tyres on them. Groupama FDJ are one of the few teams to not have disc brake bikes available to their riders, but after speaking to staff, they have been trialling a few, so keep your eyes peeled. Another team making no changes for 2019 is that of Katusha Alpecin. SRAM continued to provide group sets and Quark the power meters, and the wheels, yep, they stick with Zip, and they're wrapped up with Continental rubber. Frame and forks come from Canyon, as do the finishing kits of the bars, stems and seat posts. Now at this point we're going to run through some of the UCI women's teams that were at the Tour Down Under. Now with there being 37 teams in this category, not every team was represented at the race, so we looked at as many of these teams that we could. Rally UHC make the change to felt frames and forks after using Diamondback for the past couple of seasons. Head continue to supply the wheels, and they have Kenda tubulars fitted to them. SRAM are the group set supplier along with Quark power meters. Team Tibco are using Fuji frames, Shimano group sets, and interestingly, a Praxis Works chain set. Edco supply the wheels and Maxxis the tyres. Oval are the bars and stems, as well as seat posts, and Prologo provide the saddles. The Italian squad of B Pink are using frames from Italian brand Chemo with Shimano group sets fitted to them. Ambrosio supply the wheels, and they're fitted with Schwalbe tyres. Deda Elementi provide the stems, bars and seat posts. The Astana women's team, just like their male counterpart, use Argon 18 frame sets with Shimano group sets, and also Corima wheels with FSA finishing kits. The differences between them and the men's squad are that the women actually use FSA chain sets and Veloflex tyres. The Mitchelton Scott women ride on an identical setup to the men's outfit, so Scott frames, Shimano group sets, Shimano wheels, Pirelli tyres and Syncross bars, stems, seat posts and saddles. The Belgian squad of Dolcecini Van Eyck Sport are using Willia Triestina bikes with Shimano group sets fitted on them. Fast forward wheels with Vittoria tyres, and Ritchie finish it off nicely with bars, stems and handlebars. A new team for 2019 is that of CCC Live, and the team that includes 11-time world champion and 2-time Olympic champion Marianne Vos. They will be riding Live frame sets fitted with SRAM components, Giant wheels and Vittoria tyres, and the handlebars and stems, well, they're supplied by Giant too. The Mexican squad of Swap It Aguilico were a late invitation to the Women's Tour Down Under, so didn't have their latest bikes. But for 2019, they are using Zero Uno frames and forks fitted with Shimano group sets, Vision wheels and Maxxis tyres. Now it's time for the final 9 men's teams. Jumbo-Visma are sticking with their tried and tested setups, and there appears to be just one change, remaining with Bianchi frame sets
Not saying you need a doctor here, but you want to have someone that at least knows what the heck they're doing. So the last item that's probably really important to talk about is price, because this thing is not cheap. So this thing is at $699 right now, which is $150 more than the Fenix 5 series. And I kind of went back to Garmin with a solid like, what the? That's $150 more for adding in music, maps, and contactless payments. In a nutshell, you know, obviously there's some features and stuff like that, and that's in a world where prices are generally going down. Like you can get now the Fitbit Versa for $200 that has music on it and apps on it, $229 with contactless payments on it. I don't know if Garmin gets it. I think they're thinking people are going to keep on paying more and more money, and that's kind of, I'm not really sure about that. Obviously, it'd be up to you whether or not you think it's worth the additional funds, but we're talking a $700 watch right now, and that's a lot of money for a watch. I don't know, just me. So with that, as far as how well the watch has been working for me, it's been actually pretty awesome. So I really can't complain from a functionality perspective. All in all, like it's been pretty good. We'll jump real quick to some of the things that may not have worked out well by time this watch releases, just so I can kind of cover those briefly in one little section. Okay, as I promised at the beginning of this video, I was gonna go ahead and circle back on any bugs, any quirks that I may have seen along the way since shooting it, since I shot this video, the majority of it anyways, 3 weeks ago. It is now the night before sunset's occurring right now. The Fenix 5 Plus series is announced. I'm holding my phone because the mic keeps on resetting, and that's just how I have my microphone. So I've shot this now 4 times, and every time it resets. So I'm just going to hold it and watch it like that. Speaking of resetting, so in terms of the watch, it's reset on me precisely once in the middle of an activity. In fact, it was just after shooting that video. It was just as I shot the video itself, it resets just like a few minutes later. It was really weird. And that was the only time it did that. Garmin's looking into it. They're not quite sure why. And at the same time it did that, or slightly before it did that, in fact, the Climb Pro data, after I reached the peak of that climb, did some funky stuff, like it just didn't look quite right anymore. So I'd done the climb, I finished the climb, but then the data on the Climb Pro screen just didn't look right. It didn't impact any of the recorded data. The recorded data was fine, but that was the one time it wasn't right. And so that's something that Garmin is also looking into. It's been 3 weeks. I've been mostly in the Netherlands and Florida, both of which are largely pancake flat, so I haven't really have a way I can retest that. So that's something.
Almost all professional athletes golfers and tennis players, perhaps not included, tend to have a finite period when they can maximise their potential at the top of their sport. And triathlon, as an endurance sport by its very nature, is perhaps one of those ones where you can maximise more time than you might think. I think of it as like layers to an onion. You can keep adding those endurance and experience levels as the years go by.
Nice analogy, but that inevitable closure to their career will eventually come rolling around. So then what does the professional athlete that has spent their whole life racing, what do they do now? What do they do with their life? What career do they take? Well, we are going to be exploring that today. We're going to be looking at the different paths that triathletes have taken once their days as a professional triathlete have come to an end.
Bevan Doherty captured almost all the honours that a triathlete could dream of. Not only did he become world champion at the Madeira ITU Championships in 2004 after an epic sprint battle with Spain's Ivan Rana, he was also a dual Olympic medal winner with silver at the Athens Olympics and then bronze again in Beijing 4 years later. He also had a number of incredible second places, with second at 2006 Melbourne Commonwealth Games and again at the ITU World Champs in Vancouver 4 years later.
Yeah, absolutely incredible athlete. I used to love watching him. It was just so exciting every race, it always seemed to be. And he really just knew how to arrive on the day and perform well. And he actually also then went to step up to Ironman distance and was really quite successful at it, although you might argue didn't reach the same heights that he did in his short course ITU days. And he did actually comment, "There is no doubt I have more victories in me. However, over the last few years, it has been increasingly more difficult to reach that form and even harder to hold it. Back in the day, I could peak for months on end, but nowadays, I'm lucky to get a few weeks."
Yeah, and interestingly, in terms of what he went on to do after his career finished, he had already attained his private pilot's license by the time he'd finished his career, and then was aspiring to go on to get his commercial license thereafter. So quite the change from swim, bike and run.
Well, this next athlete was one of my idols when I actually very first started triathlon. It is Brad Cardafell, and he is actually one of Australia's most successful male ITU short course athletes. And not only did he win the Commonwealth Games on home turf at the Melbourne 2006 Games, he also won multiple ITU World Championship medals and also went to 2 Olympic Games for Australia.
Yeah, and it didn't stop there because he moved seamlessly into a long course career. He won 70.3s all over the world in different climates and conditions, and even raced at Ironman Hawaii too. But after 20 years of racing at the very highest level in 2018, he hung up the race suit.
Yeah, and whilst he may be retired, he has said that he's going to continue running as he tries to basically race and do elite marathon running. But whilst he has stepped away from professional triathlon, he has maybe taken a slightly different path from what we might expect, because Brad is currently in the process of studying for and completing all the necessary procedures for him to start owning and managing a McDonald's franchise.
Our next athlete is Chrissie Wellington, who burst unannounced onto the scene effectively in 2007 by virtue of winning her first attempt at the Ironman world title in Hawaii, which she'd only qualified for a few weeks previously at Ironman Korea. Now, fast forward 5 jam-packed seasons later, and Chrissie was retiring unbeaten from Ironman distance racing after winning her 4th global title in 2011. Now, she returned home to the UK after having been living in the US in 2012, where she embarked on a new relationship with the Park Run organisation, who organise free weekly timed 5k running events and are free and open to everyone.
Yeah, now she actually first encountered Park Run and their events when she was actually out for a Saturday jog in London, and she went through Richmond Park and just stumbled across hundreds of people lining up to take part in one of their events. And she well, decided she'd gate crash it that day. But she did, of course, return and officially take part. But then in February 2013, she actually joined forces with Parkrun and essentially joined to bang the drum for participation within the organisation, and also has helped other events with healthy lifestyle and also just getting people active. Our next athlete is Greg Welch. He's not only in the Ironman Hall of Fame, he's also in Triathlon Australia's and the ITU's Hall of Fame. And he is one of the great icons of the sport.
Yeah, now although he'd actually won the ITU short course world title in 1990, he became the first non-American male to win on the Big Island in 1994 when he famously beat Dave Scott, who was racing back in the island for the first time since he'd had the incredible Iron War of 1989 with Mark Allen. And Greg Welch has gone on to state that this was the biggest highlight of my life. I still see Hawaii as being the highlight of our sport and the premier race outside of the Olympic Games. Those are the two races that you want to win.
Yeah, and although now you will actually see him doing a lot of the commentary on the Ironman live feed online for the major Ironman races, he actually also holds quite a senior role at Oakley, where he helps and deals with a lot of the world's top athletes in not only triathlon, but also summer and winter sports. Well, now we have an exceptional athlete, Sheila Tormina, and so exceptional, in fact, we're not going to necessarily be discussing her retirement from triathlon, but rather her retirement after 3 sports, and at quite a high level as well.
Yeah, so she started off her career as a swimmer and was a member of the 4x200 freestyle relay quartet and won gold medal at the Atlanta Olympic Games in 1996. She then turned her hand to Olympic distance triathlon, and by the inaugural games at Sydney, she had come a very impressive 6th place. She then managed to win the ITU World Championships in Madeira in the next Olympic year of 2004, where she then went on to compete at that Athens Games and become a triple Olympian at that point.
Yeah, and this is where the story gets even more interesting, because it's as if that wasn't enough, being content with going to 2 Olympic Games in swimming and triathlons, she then decided, why not give it another go and go to another Olympic Games, but now in modern pentathlon. So now she had to add shooting, fencing and horse riding into the mix.
Yes, so at the grand old age of 37, she became the first and still only woman to compete in 3 different sports across 3 different Olympic Games, but actually 4 games in total, because there was 2 as triathlon. And if you ask me, that is just one heck of a way to retire from sport. Conrad Stoltz is arguably the most notable triathlete to come out of South Africa. After a career of 24 long years as a professional triathlete across road and off-road triathlon, but he's probably most well known for his 7 off-road world titles at Xterra and Cross Triathlon.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to actually race him a couple of times, and I do remember at the ITU World Cross Champs, he came past me like a steam train on the bike. He was absolutely incredible. And in addition to all of that, he's been to 2 Olympic Games and he's won over 50 Xterra World Tour events, which is incredible. But since his retirement from the sport, Conrad, or also known as the Caveman, has really got stuck into, he started throwing his passion and energy into the fast-growing industry of trail building in and around his hometown of Stellenbosch in South Africa.
Now, this is just a selection of some of the athletes who've gone on to do some rather, well, shall we say, interesting things with their lives after their careers have finished. And we really hope that you've enjoyed hearing them.
Yeah, of course, there are probably plenty more interesting stories out there post-racing lives. So if you do know of any, please do drop them in the comments section below. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more from GTN, just click on the globe and subscribe. And don't forget, you can head on over to the GTN shop and get hold of some of our GTN goodies, hoodies, cycling gear and whatnot. And if you would like to see our interview with some professional athletes and seeing what they eat, then just click down here.
And for an interview that was done with Chrissie Wellington, you can see that here. Hello and welcome back to Ask GTN, and today we are tackling all the feedback, questions and things you've asked us about running related topics.
Yep, we love getting your questions in, and today we're going
Hello and welcome back to another Ask GTN, but this time we are talking all things bike.
We are, and we have had some great questions in from you, which Mark and I are going to dive right into now.
Yeah, so this first one here from JBur19 says, how do I shift gears properly on the bike? I know it sounds silly, but I come from a swimming background where there's no technical stuff involved, and I'm not sure how to get it quite right. Do I shift before or during the hill? And do I do the first Do I first do the chain set and then the cassette, or both at the same time? You can see that I'm lost. Well, firstly, I do think that if you think that swimming isn't very technical, well, you're very lucky, because I'm sure there's a lot of viewers out there that will disagree with you.
Yes.
But back to your question, and you're certainly not silly, because I've witnessed a lot of people changing gears at the bad or incorrect time.
Yeah, I mean, you really first things first have to differentiate between our chain links at the front, a cassette at the back, and decide in your head what you're going to go for first.
Yeah, so I think on a really steep hill, you want to drop into that small chain ring first and then work through the gears. You definitely don't want to be doing both at once, because not only will you get a massive jump in the gears, there is also the risk of actually jamming the gears and having a bit of a mechanical. So you actually want to be really gentle with the gears, any movement that you make. So you're not going through the whole cassette range at the one time, you're just going through 1, 2, maybe even 3 at a time, and just doing it nice and gently. And also when you're not putting too much pressure through the chain. So it's a really interesting topic we've discussed before about when you're going up hills, what do you do when you want to change gear?
Yeah, and Mark makes that point really clear, and I've been there, done that, is grabbing gears really quickly when you see a hill, because you panic, don't you? And you think, goodness, I've got to go up that hill, I'm not in the right gear, I need to be in an easier gear. And hit your shifter to try and grab all those gears too quickly, and that's when you can get the problems with chain either falling off the back of the cassette, getting stuck between the cassette and the spokes, or equally dropping the chain at the front when it falls off from the big to the small chain ring.
Yeah, so also when you are going up a hill, I normally suggest actually sitting down when you are going to change gear, because what happens is when you're standing up out of the saddle, you're putting a lot of pressure and strain through that chain, which then is going to make it harder to move through the cassette. So sit down, take a little bit of pressure off, change the gears quickly, and then put that pressure back on. For the next question, we have from Paul Cartridge said, is there any science behind the benefits of keeping cool with a fan on the turbo trainer, thus allowing you to put out more watts, versus not using a fan to train in effectively hotter conditions? I only race in the UK, so interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I would always want to use a fan to answer that question really quickly. I understand having the turbo set up in the house to try and feel like you're working harder, because you might be racing it, but well, he actually is not. He's only racing in the UK, so the chances of it being really warm in the UK are actually pretty slim. That being said, what happens when we're in the indoor turbo, I guess, is it's about extra stress, isn't it, on the body? Yeah. And sometimes it's good to just make that stress just a little bit more bearable, and that's where the fan's good, I think.
Well, definitely. I mean, let's take it back a step here, because the reason that we sweat, well, perspire, is to kind of dissipate heat from the body. Our body's doing that on purpose, but if we are riding outside, the wind is almost evaporating that sweat away, so that's adding to that cooling effect. If we allow that sweat just to sit on us, we are going to boil, and what we see is when we start to get hot and overheat, we have a lower output and less power coming out on the bike. So if you are training in those conditions all the time on a turbo, you're probably not going to be getting that much from your session. You might adapt to an extent, but probably not overall for your.
You get really good at doing a hot turbo indoors.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not for your race performance. And if you are racing the UK, as Fraser said, just scrap it. Train hard, put a fan on, and do it well. Now, this next question is actually in reference to one of our recent videos on whether we should ride harder into headwinds or easier. And this is what we had to say in that video.
We could go into some complicated science right now, but we're going to stick to the facts that have been successfully tried and tested already by the pros. It was actually Graham O'Brien, the former 1 hour record holder, who previously stated that it's not the person that goes the fastest that wins, it's the person who slows down the least that wins.
In other words, it's really important as triathletes to maintain or keep our average speed up throughout our ride rather than peaking for some sections and then stalling for others. And if you think about it, when we are riding into headwinds, obviously we're going slower, and that then takes up a larger proportion of our overall time on the bike. So if we can increase just by a fraction our speed on that part of the ride when we're going into the headwinds, we're actually increasing our pace for a large proportion of the race.
And off the back of that, we have Marek Guck asking us, does this principle apply to climbing as well? And I mean by that, is it better to work harder whilst climbing and take it easier whilst rolling on the flats?
Yeah, really good question actually. And in a way, yes, because if you are riding with a power meter, you'll probably notice a natural increase in your power, even if you are trying to maintain the same effort level. So my theory behind this, and a few other clever folk out there said the same, although there is a bit of debate as to whether this is true, but it's to do with our pedal stroke and how much pressure we're applying through the whole pedal stroke. See, when we're riding on the flat, we often put pressure through the downstroke and not so much on the upstroke, whereas when we're on the climb, we put pressure through the whole pedal stroke. Otherwise, we'll pretty much just fall off our bike and come to a grinding halt. So that accounts for something like a 20 to 30 watt increase, just generally speaking for some people. But should we ride harder on the climbs? Now, I tend to just ride harder. That's my go-to. What do you do?
Yeah, well, we attack them, don't we? I think that's just human nature. See a hill, go harder.
And that's actually a really good point. I mean, there's the psychological side to it. You see a hill and like attack, and that's exciting, and you get an adrenaline from that. Well, most people do, whether it's fear or...
But it also depends on how long that climb is.
It's a very good point. And also sort of the race that you're doing. So is it a Olympic distance race in which you could go balls to the wall and really hard, or is it an Ironman race where you need to maybe conserve your effort a little bit more?
Yeah, and I think there's also, I like to think of it's about, especially when you're talking about shorter sprint and Olympic distances, it's almost about maintaining or conserving the momentum you've built up. And if those climbs are short, punchy ones, which we get a lot of here in the UK, you can afford almost to override that power cap that you might have put on a hill beforehand because, well, it's worth it in the long run of the race.
Yeah, and that cap idea is a really good sort of way of saying it. I mean, I normally say something like a 10% cap if you're maybe doing like a half Ironman, because you want to conserve that energy. If you're doing a shorter race where you can afford to get a little bit harder, put somewhat of like a 10 to 20 or maybe 10 to 15% cap on that intensity on the climbs. But very good question. This next one here from Stephen Rees. Can you guys do a video on how to choose a size for a TT or triathlon bike? I read online that people typically size down when going from a road to TT, but that could be old school information. Now, I've got to say, I used to give that advice and used to do very similar. I used to ride a 58 centimeter road bike and then ride a the equivalent of a 56 centimeter TT bike. I now actually ride a 56 centimeter road bike, but that's irrelevant now. What do you used to do?
I'm just wondering if we're showing our age here and that we're just quite old. Yeah, I mean, when I came into the sport, definitely it was the same. It was, you know, smaller bike is better because that might be lighter. You can be a little bit more aero perhaps, and I definitely think there's been a change in thinking now, and
well, it's also the brands as well. There's a whole the geometry's kind of adjusted for TT bikes. It was TT bikes used to be kind of just an add-on to their range, and the sizes geometries weren't really thought about. They're all adjusted now, and actually you are mostly buying TT bikes in a small, medium, and large. So it's completely different. And what I would say with TT bikes is that the position is so important. It's actually best to try and see the bike beforehand, whether that's going to a bike shop, check the bike out, get fitted up, take measurements, and actually find the size that fits you. And if possible, sit on that bike beforehand.
Yeah, that is a really good point. But it is obviously a tricky thing to do because it's hard to go and see two bikes in different sizes in one place, but if you can, I think it would be an ideal way. I mean, I always rode a medium frame on pretty much the same type of bike, and I do wish maybe I'd even been able to sit on a large and just have a try and see what that felt like, because to be honest, I never did and never had that comparison to make.
Yeah, I would actually, just to add to that, I always used to go for a slightly smaller frame, and actually now, I wish I'd known, actually, I should have been extending out a bit further, which I probably couldn't have done on those smaller bikes.
Yeah.
So. Very important. Okay, well, next question from Jasper W said, when cycling here in the north of the Netherlands, I never use my smaller chainring up front. Would it be crazy to just have one chainring up front and save weight of that extra ring and front derailleur?
I mean, I would firstly say, lucky you that you don't need a small chainring, because I wish where I've spent most of my time training, I didn't need one.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, no, not at all. I mean, people are going to really disagree with me here. We've had some haters for the single chainring idea, but if the course does allow, then definitely single chainring if you can, but you just need to make sure that the gearing is correct for that course. And we've actually seen loads of the top cyclists, time trial specialists, and even many of the top pros going for this single chainring option. But what you do need to make sure that you do is that you get a narrow, wide chainring. So this there is basically longer teeth on the chainring, which stops the chain from then just falling off as you're going through the gears. Another thing to maybe take into consideration is that gearing, and we have seen some pretty crazy gears as of late. So a lot of the pros at Kona, the male pros in particular, are riding over 55 tooth chain rings. Yeah,
they're getting what I think are enormous sizes, to be honest, because I'm a little bit old school and still think a 53 chain ring's quite enormous. But yeah, I mean,
it's very good going, mate.
Thanks. But yeah, I think it is definitely becoming more popular. I mean, I do actually remember a race last year being passed by a guy, Jordan Rapp, riding on a 1x11, a single chain ring, and it seems strange, but definitely going to happen more.
Yeah, well, we saw Joe Skipper, Kona, on a 60 tooth. 60 tooth?
Yeah,
it's pretty big. But this is all to do with chainline efficiency, which Matt Bottrell explains here.
A 60 tooth chainring to a lot of our viewers will sound absolutely nuts, but what is the idea behind that?
Again, it's all about chainline efficiency. So if we can say, you know, if we've not got these massive crossovers, then we're going to ultimately save drag. So, you know, it might be a couple of watts that we're going to save by having the correct chain line.
And our next question from Derman, who asks us, are there any TT handlebars that take MTB brakes?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is no.
Never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I'm not sure why you want it, but
yeah, it's a niche market.
I would like to see it. You can, however, get hydraulic brakes for TT bikes. I've actually got a set on my Cervelo P5X. I've got the SRAM Aero HRD hydraulic brakes, which are very powerful. So if you're looking for that side of the technology for mountain biking, it is there.
Works well.
Yeah. Now I've got a big question coming now from Fuji Wuji. I don't understand the idea behind allowing bars only as long as your brake levers. Is there some advantage that the longer ones offer that short ones don't? And if so, why would the race organisers bother and insist that triathletes only use shorter ones? It goes on and on, but basically we're talking about the shorter draft legal bars that you see in ITU racing.
So I mean, it's the rules for ITU racing and short course racing. There is no plane that can extend past the edge of our brake hoods. That'd be a good way to describe it. So you see, if you're ever to watch the athletes, getting themselves ready to go through transition, there'll be referee making sure they'll have a block of wood that'll get put towards the front of the bike and just literally see whether those handlebar extensions go past your brake. If they do,
we won't share the tricks to cheating that one.
No, another video.
Yeah, that's another video. But anyway, I think the idea, I'm pretty sure I know the idea behind keeping them shorter is for safety, really. If by having the longer bars, your hands are quite far away from the brake levers. So if you do suddenly need to grab those brakes because you are in a pack and draft legal racing, it's a long way to go, whereas from the shorter bars, they're just there. It's a small bit, but
it's also, I mean, you're absolutely right, but it's also the fact that that's a little bit of a weapon the longer it gets.
Exactly.
So if you do crash or multiple bikes come down, then you just don't want an extra thing protruding.
Yeah, and then I guess you could also talk about the race dynamics as well, is that it would probably completely change the race dynamics if everyone had these long TT bars on, so they're time trialing through what should have been a draft legal race. The draft legal bit is the fun part of draft legal racing, so let's keep that there and don't turn it into a time trial.
And our next question from Austin Blair is, I thought pedals self-loosened.
Yeah, well, this is quite a good one to finish on, and it is in reference to a video made quite a while back about how to install and remove your pedals.
Yeah, and I guess what we're driving at here is it's easy to think when we're pedaling in the forward direction that we're moving the cranks in our pedals, that in theory that the spindles can
loosen.
Yeah, effectively come out of our cranks. But that, well, what do you think?
Well, actually, it is due to an effect called precession that actually means that they don't self-loosen. In fact, they actually self-tighten, or maybe they don't self-tighten. They just don't loosen, because what is happening is, although, like you say, we're pedaling in that direction, they could loosen. The bearings within them, within the spindle area, are actually going the opposite direction, so we don't get that loosening effect.
So really, I mean, I have seen pedals come off bikes. I mean, it can happen, but that's either
I've not.
That's either because they've sheared and there's a proper problem, or you've just not put them on properly in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like the beginning of a training camp, maybe you don't put your pedals on that tight. You think, oh, I'll get these off really easily. By the end of the training camp, after a week or two, they're always tighter.
You always need to get help, don't you?
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I wonder what would happen if you actually cycle backwards. Maybe they would eventually come off.
That's too confusing.
But anyway, that was great fun. We loved going through all your questions there. And please do keep sending them in, whether it's swim, bike or run. We love reading through them and answering them for you. Now, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more videos from GTN, you can click on the globe and subscribe.
And for a video about riding into a headwind, you can click here.
And if you'd like to see our triathlon versus TT bike with Match Bottrell, then just click down there.
This is the GTN show. We have record breakers to discuss. We've got prize winners to announce, and we have pain caves to reveal.
And on the subject of record breakers, we have the ultimate triathlon, but with a difference. And today we are going to be discussing whether Ironman is far enough.
Back at the beginning of the summer, on the 1st of June, British man Ross Edgley set out with the attempt to swim around the UK mainland, a total of 1,780 miles.
That is incredible. And in doing so, he aimed to not touch land once during the trips. They stayed out at sea after every day of swimming. And at some points he was swimming for 12 hours a day. They stay out at sea, carry on the next day. And he did that for 157 days.
Well, he completed this challenge on the Sunday just gone, and I mean, quite an incredible feat. We've been following it loosely, and at points I really didn't think he was going to make it. He's had storms, he's had strong tides to battle against, cold water, obviously, especially up around Scotland, and now we're in November, so it's not exactly tropical. And I think he aimed to do it in far quicker than it actually did.
Yeah, I mean, I think he realised quite quickly just how tough it was. Very quickly he started to suffer with chafing on the neck, so he had to figure out how to get around that. We had jellyfish stings that were really putting him in a lot of pain. Also his tongue just disintegrating through something called salt mouth. We did discuss it once before on the channel. That was quite rough. So he's had a hard time, but wow, what an achievement. And yeah, as you say, came in on Sunday into Margate in Kent, and Lucy Charles greeted him as he came into the finish. So how cool is that?
Definitely got a lot of traction in the triathlon community, and that leads us on. It's looking at how athletes, triathletes as well, are often looking for another challenge, and it's not just swimming that we've seen record attempts at recently.
Well, yeah, there's another chap actually close to home. Actually, a guy called Charlie Condor, having just finished A-levels at high school, so he decided, I want to do something different. So he was trying to cycle around the world, and actually just 100 days into that challenge, he had his bike stolen, which is a little bit of a hinder.
Yeah, well, I think he'd already got through Europe and was somewhere in is it Asia or America?
I think so, yeah.
Into Asia, and he he's the youngest. He's attempted to be the youngest person to cycle around the world, but he was on a Sabello, and they have amazingly, very kindly provided him with a new bike, which is a pretty cool story.
Yeah. Absolutely fabulous. I mean, he did say in an article that this was never going to stop him. He always was going to carry on. So really great that Svello stepped in so he can carry on and continue for that 18,000 miles I think he's got to do, which is
insane. Well, whilst we're talking, you know, we've covered swimming, we've covered cycling. I think it's only fair that we have a look at running. And there is admittedly another British man. I'm sure there's lots of other people doing crazy run adventures, but Jamie McDonald is running 6,000 miles, almost 10,000 kilometres across America, and that actually equates to equivalent of 230 marathons, all in the aid of charity.
Yeah, I mean, he actually has run across Canada before, and in doing so...
As you do.
Yes, you do. And in doing so, he raised over $500,000 for children's hospitals, and again, that is what his ambition is, again, to raise money for children's hospitals, which is actually something close to his heart, having spent a lot of his childhood in these hospitals. So he's really trying to give something back. So that's a massive motivation for him, and that is really the ultimate triathlon ever.
It is, and I mean, it's got us thinking, do we as triathletes actually look for other challenges? Is Ironman still far enough, or do we want ultra endurance challenges?
We do weirdly seem to attract in triathlon people with that mindset, don't we? That just we want to go further, we want to challenge ourselves more, and maybe Ironman isn't enough for some of us. So that is the question today. Do you want to do further than Ironman? Is Ironman not enough? And it's simply yes or no.
Yeah, and I must admit that I'm going for towards the yes myself at the moment, because I have just entered the Comrades Ultra Marathon. I'm hoping it's going to be less time than it takes me to an Ironman, but it's...
Now, for those of you out there that don't know what a Comrades marathon is, how far is it?
87 kilometres of running.
Yeah, and it actually switches direction each year. So this year you are running
uphill.
There we go. So don't like to do it easy here.
But anyway, do make sure you click on the link above my head to enter that poll. And I think it's time to have a look at the results from last week's poll.
Yeah, so I asked you, do you think the new Ironman qualification system is good? Where we're changing for the pro field, how they qualify for the Ironman 70.3 World Champs and the Ironman World Champs. And quite clear really this week.
Yes, well, it was a massive 72% of you that said yes and just 28% that said no. I don't know if you're surprised at that answer there, Mark.
I'm surprised it's so definite and clear, but I am excited actually to see how this is going to shake things up. I think a lot of people out there aren't really that sure how it's going to go, so
we'll soon start to see.
Yeah, well now we have the exciting giveaway time. So we've recently had giveaway competitions for the Utopia helmet from Cask, which I have here, which is our new Aero Road helmet, and we also have the Roka Transition backpack.
Yeah, well first up we have 3 winners of this Utopia helmet. We have Gary Stevenson.
We also have Damien Bergen.
And Jim Bretherton.
Well, fantastic. Well done to you guys, and we will be in touch with you to get these helmets to you.
Yeah.
Now for the Roka Transition bag, we have Chris Kutchin,
Kane Boggis,
and Lou Garcia.
Well, again, congratulations to you guys, and just wait, we will be in touch, and then that Roka Transition bag will be on its way to you. Well, this first bit of news is a little bit selfish because we have reason to celebrate. We've just reached another milestone, 150,000 subscribers, thanks to you guys.
Yeah, it only feels like yesterday that we just surpassed that 100,000 subscribers. So yeah, another 50,000 is an amazing achievement for us. We're so happy and we're so pleased that you guys are enjoying the content and watching all our videos.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't get there without you, but that does mean we still want to hear from you guys. So if there's things that you think, oh, you know, you really love about the show or videos we do, or if there's anything that you think I'd like more of that, or something else that you've got an idea.
Or less of.
Or less of us, yeah, hopefully not. Do let us know in the comments section below. And next up in the news, we are going from talking about ultra distance triathlon to a 3-minute triathlon. USA Triathlon combined with Ironman have actually come up with this initiative at their some of their races to try and encourage runners, specifically half marathon and marathon runners, to take up triathlon. And by doing so, they've got in their expos, they're basically setting up a 3-minute triathlon that's 60 seconds of swimming swimming, or if they're using, I think, some sort of swim bench to replicate swimming, 60 seconds on a spin bike, followed by 60 seconds running on a treadmill.
That's a great way of getting people into the sport, isn't it? And sampling it.
Yeah, I mean, these events are half marathon marathons, and they're thinking that once someone's done a challenge like that, they're looking for another challenge, which we were talking about earlier, and they realise that lots of runners do cross-train and they swim and cycle to kind of help with their training. So I think this is a great opportunity to try and get the sport of triathlon out there to other people. And not only do they get the chance to do this, they then get the right direction of where they can find their nearest triathlon club and free training support and a training plan. So it's a great initiative, and it actually is part of the bigger picture where USA Triathlon are trying to get from, I think, at the beginning of this year when it launched up until the end of 2020, they want to try and get 100,000 new people into triathlon.
Which is really very good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive.
Well, we've also got some other news, and this is that the Los Angeles Triathlon is back after a 3-year hiatus. So that's great news. It's an event that takes place on Venice Beach, and this is going to have quite a big prize purse as well, so it's going to attract some international athletes.
Yeah, it's already, the likes of Heather Jackson's already put a name to it. It's not until June next year. I think they had some problems with logistics for the last few years. So it is actually a point-to-point triathlon, so it's going to start, like you said, in Venice Beach, but then the cycle is sort of an undulating route into downtown LA, which sounds pretty cool, and then the run is fairly flat and fast. I think I would definitely like to be signing up for that one. I mean, anything that's got starts on Venice Beach and finishes in downtown LA, it's pretty cool.
Now we also have some hot competition over at the Challenge races, because this year Challenge are running their Challenge Family World Bonus Pool with $165,000 up for grabs to the pro athletes.
Yeah, well, it's suddenly got very exciting on the men's side, because there is now a tie between Sebastian Kienle and Pablo Di Pina. Now, it was Sebastian Kienle who had the lead quite comfortably for most of the season. He won Challenge Roth, so got a lot of points there. But Pablo Di Pina has crept up, and it was his win at the Challenge Paguera Mallorca, which has now put him on equal points with Sebastian Kienle.
Yeah, and there is a race coming up very soon. It's the Asia Pacific Championships, which take place in Taiwan. So with it being so close, it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top between them. So very excited about all of this.
Especially late in the season as well. It's quite interesting to see how these athletes, whether they put that as a priority. And obviously we saw Kienle have disappointment in Kona, so he might have actually changed his focus to look at this Challenge Championship.
Now there have been some rumours for some time now that SRAM have been working on a 12-speed group set for the road, and it appears that the rumours are true, because just a couple of days ago photos were spotted leaked out onto the internet of bikes from the Katusha Alpecin road cycling team.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's they're trialling it ahead of the 2019 season, and the fact that the pros are using it, it's obviously pretty much ready to go, so we're just waiting now to see this official launch. But it's quite exciting, and I think we're going to see more going in that direction, and I think triathlon will be pretty quick to grab that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, it's not the first time we've seen these 12-speed group sets, but as always with SRAM, they like to hold on to things and make sure they're really perfect before they release them, and while they're running it by the pro team to get rid of any teething issues. And this was with a 2x setup, but with triathlon, with this whole 1x setup becoming quite popular, this could be really interesting, giving you that gear range option. But also on the same bike and the photos that were leaked, they also spotted these new Quark power meter cranks. Now, I don't have much information on that, but another very exciting product.
It's all a bit of a teaser. We've been teased and we're teasing you.